So you picked yourself a barbarian, the best class in Diablo 4. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Not a druid, sorry druids, not a rogue, definitely not a rogue. You're a barbarian, you are Giga Chad. What are we here doing today? I'm going to show you and tell you things on how to be the best and make the perfect barbarian in Diablo 4. That's what I'm going to show for you today. Some things you may know, there are going to be a lot of things you might not know. Very important, you need to know this, and we need to juice these characters, make them extremely strong. I'm going to show you no matter what build you're playing for the barbarian, and there is a 99.99% chance by the time you're done watching this video and you go and make these changes to your own character, barbarian of course, if you're any other class, unlucky, GG, go again, but you will be stronger. You will, so let's just get it. What up, my friends? It is Murderank. We are talking about the barbarian. Beautiful, brutal barbarian. We have 4 weapons. Why do you have 4 weapons? Simply because we can. So that's a side point. We get tons of extra stats, a lot of things you want to know here, and we're going to start off first by one thing that players may not know. Okay, so everyone knows that for most barbarian builds, crit damage is insanely strong. You cannot get it on the bludgeon weapon. If you look at under damage per second here, it says overpowered damage. That is always going to be static for maces. For swords, it is going to be crit damage. So you do want 3 swords because, of course, with that being the best stat, we have axes that give healthy damage. We have pole arms that give injured damage. We don't care about those. We want the crit damage because it scales the best for damage overall. Now, think about this for a second. We have 3 sources of crit damage and nothing else. While crit damage is incredibly strong, one thing you have to consider is, even if there is a damage source that's multiplicative, which means it scales the best, you can find this if you turn advanced tooltips on and you hover over, let's just find something really quick. Okay, so earthquakes in the bottom here, you deal 12% and you see that X multiplicative means it scales the most. If there's no X there, let's find no X right here. We see a plus sign up to 48%. This is crit chance, of course, so I guess I should find damage for something better. So this is 60% X. Come on, where's the damage? Dealing. Okay, so this is just straight percentage from the whirlwind, right? It's not X damage, so it's not multiplicative. So it's going to be lower damage overall. So, I mean, that's one thing that's important, but not the main point here. So with what I'm trying to explain here is crit damage is always going to be very high. While it is a multiplicative source of damage, it's additive on top of itself as a stat. You really don't care about this. What I need to tell you is you want to make sure things like crit damage and vulnerable damage are as close in percent as possible. So when you're prioritizing substats on weapons and you're re-rolling gear, seeing if you can get something better, you may not always want to roll crit damage, because if you have 500 crit damage and 150 vulnerable damage, you're not going to do as much damage if you just brought both of those down and evened them out. Right? So the percentage gain from going 100% to 150 is going to be higher than from 350 to 400. That's the way it's going to work. So there are diminishing returns on those stats. So you want the OP stats to be as close as possible. So what are our OP stats? I kind of went over this before here. We have strength. We have critical strike damage, vulnerable damage, and finally, where is it? Where is it? Damage with core skills. Core skills scales better than anything else in the game, better than damage to stun targets, damage to bleed targets, damage to slowed targets, damage to healthy, whatever it is, core is the best. Why is core the best? In case you're curious about this, head on down to the skill tree. Unbridled Rage, core skills deal 135%. What do we see? The X. Multiplicative increased damage. This is why core scales incredibly well with our characters. So that's the first thing here. Don't just stack one stat to the moon and just completely ignore the other forms of multiplicative damage. Balance them out. To your best ability, balance them out. The next thing we're going to talk about is going to be the gearing part. You're grinding XP, you're doing your XP farms, you're picking up gear. You should kind of know what gear you want to pick up. At the beginning, it's going to be overwhelming. You're going to have to pick up everything, teleporting back to town over and over again. It's going to be worth it, trust me. In the end, it will be worth it. Figuring out what you exactly need. Now for this video, since I'm playing a whirlwind, or a variation of a whirlwind barbarian, that's what I'm going to use here. So don't take what I'm saying outside of the main 4 scaling multipliers. You definitely want to consider those for sure. But if you scale overpower of course is going to do well for you as well. But what I'm trying to say here is I'm going to be speaking in specific terms. The overall terms is going to apply to every barbarian build, but in specific terms, I'm talking about whirlwind here. So for the helmet, cooldown, obvious thing to look at. For the neck, cooldown, obvious thing to look at. +3 all defensive stats is nice for sure, but these are things you need to know about. What do I need? What do I need to achieve here? For the rings, resource gen, vulnerability, crit strike, and crit damage. You see this ring obviously sucks here because I don't have crit damage. I only have physical damage, but as we said, even if I did get crit damage, it's not going to be too crazy because I'm a little bit over where I should be for the crit damage compared to vulnerability damage. I'm almost 100% lower, so I really want as much vuln damage as possible. But still, in the grand scheme of things, physical damage will never come close to crit damage, even if I have like, I'm not going to say 9,000 crit damage, over 9,000. I'll say over 9,000. Okay, there it is. So know what pieces of gear you need, know what stats you need on that gear. Pick up the ancestral, the sacred, whatever your highest tier is all the time. Quickly scan, say, okay, I know I need this, know I need that, get it done. The next thing is legendaries. What I've noticed a lot of people doing is they say, okay, I can dismantle legendaries for good mats. I can sell them for really good gold, but you have to look at the stats. The stats can be good and you can just imprint over them and you might have an amazing upgrade. Can't tell you how many times I've heard people saying, I don't even look at legendaries. If the aspect isn't good for me, I straight up disenchant it or just sell it for gold. Don't do it. Take the half second to look through because you might find that this piece you really needed that's in a legendary or ancestral legendary form, and before you would have just completely skipped over it. So I just finished an XP farm, so I'm just going to show you what I do. As far as this 18% roll, this is a ancestral unique, so I cannot replace the imprint, so this is an easy sell. I do I have one of these? Yeah, I do, and I'm pretty sure I have a 20% roll. So GG. Next one, strength, dodge chance, movement speed. Already have a better pair, don't need the implicit, sell. Next one, don't need this aspect. Crit strike damage, berserking, okay, no good. Next one, core skill, crowd control, strength, no good. Do not need the aspect as well. Okay, going through here, vulnerable, crit strike damage. Ooh, this could be good. So +27 all stats isn't the best. But what would go in that slot? Probably strength. So it's not that bad because I am getting strength in this. And if you need some help in your Paragon tree with stats like willpower, dexterity, intelligence, hitting those capstones, let me just go to it so you know what I'm talking about. So I'm not speaking to a freaking wall over here. What do we got? What do we got? Okay, so here I'm 20 willpower short of hitting this inner strength node. So this could be a benefit to me. +27 all stats. So this is actually possibly decent. So I will move this to the side. Let's hit the shift key so I can see the compare to what I have. Strength, vulnerable, core skill, crit damage. Okay, that's pretty damn good. What about the other one? So it's core skill, strength, crit damage, close, and okay, so we might actually have an upgrade. Like we said, core is good, crit damage good, strength is good, vulnerability is good, everything else kind of close together. So the close damage here is going to be my weak roll, so this Doom Edge could be an upgrade, which is weird because I rarely get upgrades from this. Usually you're just going through here and you get nothing good. Okay, next thing, berserking, overpower, injured, easy sell, easy sell. Next, gloves, physical damage, dex, okay, easy sell, don't need the aspect here. Whirlwind and rend, would never need it. Moving on to here, fortify, don't care. Bludgeon, bleeds, no. Next, vulnerable, crit strike damage, okay. Why am I getting, okay, this doesn't normally happen. Should we cut this out? You never show good gear, because then people want it. I don't know what to do with my hands, I'm freaking out, okay.
Please disperse. Nothing to see here.
So 757 power, we have a max roll strength. We have almost the max roll vulnerable damage. Crit strike damage, which is a little bit lower than I'd like it, but basic skill damage. We would re-roll this if we can, for core damage skill, and GG's. This is a really, really good... Man, what is going on with this today? It wasn't supposed to be like this. I was supposed to get terrible gear so I could complain to you guys live on this. Okay, so here's the Earthquake thing. Basic skill, Berserking, Strength. We don't need it. And we don't need the Earthquake because it's a low roll. Yeah, so I'm supposed to be getting... Oh no, what is this? 15% crit damage. It's a low roll. Vulnerability, all stats. We already talked about all stats. Not always the worst, but we're going to sell that for now. Next, Sword. Overpower, close though, don't need it. Ring. Rings are very important. You should always look at every single ring. Don't need the Starlight aspect. Stunned, life, no thank you. Lucky hit. Resource gen is good. Crit damage is good. Don't need barrier, don't need lucky hit, so that's going to be a sell. Next, vulnerable damage, good. The other three bad, insta sell. Next, we have a neck piece here. Damage on elite kill, damage reduction, which is good, but the others are not good, unfortunately. Next, we have maximum fury, crit strike damage, vulnerable damage. So 2 of the 4 are good. However, we do not need something that's small of an upgrade. Next, we have crit strike damage, core skill damage. Okay, 2 for 2 so far. All stats can get away with it. Basic skill. However, we know, because I already have it over here, that these are going to be better, so I'm going to disenchant that. It's the legendary, and I'm pretty good on gold with 38 million at the moment. Okay, next weapon here. All stats, bleeding, close, not good enough. Vulnerable damage, injured. See, this is what it's supposed to be like. Next thing, we have a main hand. So for two-handed weapons, you want to look at item power on top of the 4 things, which is why it's so hard to get a good main hand. So I do not use the two-handed slashing weapon for my whirlwind build. I use the bludgeon weapon. So that's why my bludgeon is 814 item power, meaning the damage per second is incredible. I mean, just look at the difference. 2,074 damage per second on a 749 item power compared to 2,676 on an 814. Substantial, noticeable. So with that being said, as far as the 690, not even an ancestral piece, this is an easy disenchant. Next thing, we have healthy. Okay, that one's terrible. Death blow, don't need that. Here we have, okay, so this is what I'm talking about. Movement speed on elite kill. Poison res, intelligence. I would reroll the intelligence, obviously, looking for that fury cost reduction. The issue is, if we look to the boots I'm currently wearing, we have a higher roll in the movement speed, so I would have to consider this greatly. I really would. I mean, the poison res is probably the best res you can get, because if you don't know, poison resistance pumps you. You don't want to get hit with the poison. So this is going to be a maybe. I'll move that to the right here. Next, we have a ring. Crit strike damage, damage to play. Is this stage for the video? Blizzard, are you putting good gear in my inventory for the video? No one ever gets a haul like this where I actually have pieces to consider, especially 3. Okay, so it's a low crit strike chance roll, but it's a max vulnerable roll. It's 812 power. And it's got 1% low. Okay, so what am I doing here? I'm rolling resource generation because I have an alpha roll currently on my ring, and this is an upgrade. GG. GG. Glad I recorded this. Should have got a worse run, but it is what it is. Okay, basic skill, core skill, crit, not good enough, so we sell this. Berserking, okay, don't care about that. Next thing, damage reduction is good, but the necks are so hard. You need so many good things from a neck here. Okay, item power 800, off to a good start. Close damage, berserking, okay, this is terrible. Moving on here, another weapon, ancestral 773. It's an axe, overpower, okay. Oh, I shouldn't have sold that. Actually, I shouldn't have sold that one either. We'll keep these for the disenchant. Thankfully, there's a buyback tab. Okay, next, sword. Strength, core skill, very good. Damage to slow, not good, so we sell. 812 812 slashing. Oh no, so this is a one-handed. Okay, I got excited with the 812. So we have crit strike damage, vulnerable damage, strength, and then we reroll. I mean, the rolls aren't too crazy, but what a session. I couldn't have planned this if I tried to. And I didn't try to, trust me. Okay, so we got 4 pieces that could potentially be upgrades, so we're going to go over that for sure here. This is my process. This is what you need to do every single time, and you will gear up faster than you believe. The second thing is, don't be afraid to check the vendors, right? So let's look at this one. Okay, this is absolutely awful. This is a terrible example, but I have gone through this vendor before, and I have seen not 1, but 2 800 item power two-handed weapons that you would use for a Whirlwind, or you would use for Hammer of the Ancients, or you would use for Rupture, Rend, whatever build you're playing, just sitting here in this vendor. If you're not checking the vendor, you don't know how good the quality of gear is. It used to be a meme. My friends would go to town, they would say, Murder, I have no gold. I have none. And I'm like, what are you buying out the vendors? First of all, I got trolled by them. They told me that the vendors were different in each town. They're not, by the way. So I'm here teleporting around like, okay, sick. Dire Guard. This one's actually kind of good. Damage reduction, challenging shout, two important things. I have kind of like a Abyss chest piece with triple damage reduction and rallying cry. Oh, actually I have rallying and not challenging. I mean, so this was almost good. Perfect example here. But back to what I was saying. I'm sitting there like an idiot, porting from city to city like, this Dire Guard looks so familiar from the last one. Maybe the next one. And I go there, oh, another Dire Guard. Let's look at the stats. Wow, isn't that crazy? The last 3 places had the same Dire Guard in their armor vendor. And then I realized that all of them are the same. The fact that it took me 3, we're not even going to talk about it. We're not even going to talk about it, but it is what it is. So check the vendors. You can have major upgrades. So if you're curious what the vendors are, there's a weapon vendor, which is weapons. There's an armor vendor, which I'm at now. And then finally, if we go down here, with our handy dandy movement speed, rings and amulets. Very, very important. Vulnerable damage. Okay, so this one's not good here. And the other one's not ancestral, so yeah, whatever. But check these. Trust me, check these. They refresh quite often, so what's it going to hurt if you do, in fact, check them? Okay, now that I went over most of the basics here, and I'm going to do my gear stuff later, second thing to talk about is actual Barbarian gameplay. So what are we going to do? We're going to go to a random dungeon here. You know what? Let's just pick something nice and close here. And what's our path looking like? All right, I'll see you guys when I get there. And we can talk on the way. I'm just kidding. I'll see you when we get there. Okay, here we are. We're zoning into the dungeon right now. Zoning into the dungeon. Let me look presentable. Okay. Now, I'm a bit overgeared. And I don't want to one-shot things, but we want to talk about mechanics here. So, the unfortunate meta. I say unfortunate. Some people don't mind. I don't personally care. I think it is what it is, but you're running 3 shouts in most builds. Some people aren't. If you're early game, you're probably not running 3 shouts, but once you get to the end game, you're going to run 3 shouts. They're just way too strong. Challenging, war cry, and rallying cry. You don't want to give those up. The question is, how do you walk up to a mob pack? You might be thinking, Murder, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. What do you mean? How you just walk up to it, right? Walk up to it, start spinning. Oh, I have no rage. Okay. So let me talk about a few things. You cannot hit 3 at the same time unless you macro them. Hey, yo, chill. All right, team, chill. I'm trying to talk here. Okay, so you see what I did there? How I walked forward? Always do this. I like to lead with challenging to take lower damage here. Then pop this, stun, Berserker's Fury, do some damage, get rid of the vulnerable people. Bam, bam, bam. Okay, so really quickly, why did I walk forward? Was it to group up mobs? Partially. Why did I really walk up forward? And a lot of people have been commenting about this from the current build I'm running. They're saying, how are you running Ground Slam? Aren't you running out of Fury really quickly if you're not one-shotting mobs? You can if you're not careful. And this is why I walk forward. If I walked forward here and I saw on the edge of my screen there was a massive pack there, I would really have to consider what I'm going to do. That means that I have to pull 2 mobs that I just killed in front of you back here, kill them, make sure my cooldowns are set before going forward, or pull all of them. And we are barbarians, we're OP, so we just YOLO, go straight to that 3rd pack and do it. The same thing applies with the 3rd pack, though. This is why you have to be careful. You want to run up to the mobs, use your movement skill by them so you're taking as little damage as possible. We'll test it right here. Okay, so one spawned behind me. I saw that. Looking ahead, nothing there. Good. Pop the cooldown, stun, bam, clean everything up. GG, easy. I might be thinking, Murder, this is going to take forever. Because now you have 2 seconds left, 3 seconds, 4 seconds. Bro, just wait. There's no time limit. You can wait the 3-4 seconds just to be safe. It's better than dying. I mean, for me, obviously this content's a terrible showcase. The mobs stop scaling at level 95. I'm level 96, so this is a steamroll. But if you're in challenging content, if you're level 30, 40, whatever, playing any possible build, you need to do this. You will never die. You will fly through your content. Even, okay, I say fly through, meaning efficiently go through your content. Even if it takes you an extra 3 or 4 minutes, isn't that better than dying every 5 or 6 packs? I would say yes. Isn't it better than having no rage because you didn't manage or look ahead properly? Okay, so we just pop our cooldowns here, break the gate. Okay, we one-shot it, bada bing, bada boom. One-shot this guy, easy million. Okay, so 7 seconds left, 6 seconds left. What do I do now? I scout. We're scouting here, we're scouting with 2 seconds left. Let's sprint ahead like we talked about. Okay, I'm stuck. Send help. Okay, I see another pack here, another one there. There's an artillery shrine. I damage reduction shout, use my damaging shouts, kill the the damage reduction targets, clear to the shrine, and GG. This small little tip here, it may sound so simple and so stupid, but if you're not doing this, you will see instantly how much easier all of your pulls go and all of your content you're doing. Trust me. Now, a lot of people say, why do you open with challenging shout compared to something like rallying cry or compared to something like war cry? So let's take a look at this really quickly. Rallying cry specifically gives you unstoppable. What is unstoppable? Gets you out of stuns, gets you out of freezes, gets you immune from knockbacks, which will take you out of your whirlwind or whatever you're doing for whatever build you're doing. I don't use this first in case I instantly get CC'd. I would rather run up and make sure I'm taunting the enemies and getting that damage reduction. Because if you're going to run into mobs, you will get one shot if you're doing high enough content. You just will. So you want to open with your shout, then pop the damage shout after you're confirmed you're not getting CC'd, and just go to town. Just go ham, kill everything on your screen here. I play a little bit reckless here. I did not look ahead that time, but like I said, this is lower content for me, so it's not something constantly at the front of my mind here. Now the next question is going to be, how do you use Wrath of the Berserker? So this is also something where I don't recommend just spamming it. You will live more often if you do not just spam Wrath of the Berserker off cooldown. What I do is run to the mob. We already talked about it. Challenging shout. Once I don't get instantly CC'd, I then hit Rallying Cry and War Cry together because you can hit both of those at the same time. And then once the Unstoppable runs out, and I mean, you can try to calculate this yourself here. While Rallying Cry is active, you're unstoppable. So if you want to double dip for the maximum damage, you can Rallying Cry into Wrath of the Berserker. If you don't want to use that and save your Wrath of the Berserker for a get out of jail for free card in case your Rallying Cry is down, not a bad idea. I have yet to find a place where I lack damage on the Barbarian because we are Giga Chads. I know you just saw me spam all 4 of my shouts there. Don't do that. Don't do that. I don't know why I did that. I shouldn't have done that. It was, I don't know. Bad habits here. Okay, so what do we do? All my cooldowns are down. Stun. Taking less damage. Okay, shout. I see no threats in the future for me. Now I just go here, drink a potion. Make sure I'm set here, and bam, 1 second cooldown. 1 second cooldown left. Now I know I do have Echoing Fury, Bold Chieftains. Not everyone's going to have that. I get it, but you'll be fine. Okay, so this is how you do dungeons. Plain and simple, this is how you do dungeons. Now, a lot of people have been saying, Murder, what if I'm playing your build specifically? Now this one won't apply to others, so you can close your ears or whatever. Just skip through this brief 15-second thing. What about bosses? What if I cannot kill the boss and I run out of Fury with Ground Stomp? So what you can do is before you go to the boss, hit S, take Lunging Strike, swap it for Ground Stomp, and now you have a Fury generator for the bosses if they're going to take a long time. Now this shouldn't really be, because up until you're level 100, everything should be a speed farm. You should be speed farming Nightmare Dungeons. Bosses should be practically getting one shot if you're geared properly. The only thing you're going to run into is if you're early on in the levels and your gear's not the greatest, that's when things can take longer to die. So I would recommend swapping to Lunging Strike. Now here's the next thing about making sure you're doing the most damage possible. For my build specifically, we're using a bludgeon weapon to spin with because it synergizes with my build. Once again, you can check out that video if you want to. So how do we make sure the bludgeon weapon is always picked here? It's going to pick the highest DPS weapon. Now, if my bludgeon weapon wasn't the highest DPS weapon, I would lose out on all of the mace synergy that the game isn't picking up in the total damage per second. So what do? I close out of this, I hit the S key. What does S do? Show unavailable skills. I then hover over Lunging Strike, which we don't care about because I'm dragging War Stomp back on it. And then we hover over Whirlwind, which is what I meant to do. And then you can see scroll down. So we'll just scroll down to the bottom here. And at the bottom of the screen, you're going to see Psych a Weapon, Assign Skill, Remove Skill. We want to Psych a Weapon, which is going to be the middle mouse button. You're going to press it down. What happens? It goes to dual wield. You click it again, it goes to bludgeon weapon. You click it one more time, it's going to go to your slicing weapon. Why do they call it slicing? Blizzard, fix your game. Okay, so you don't have to hit S. I just say hitting S so it's like straight in front of your name. If you want to just hover over the skill and hit the same thing, actually it doesn't work. I lied. Completely baited you. You have to hit S and open up this menu here so it shows you the scroll down. Okay. And after that, we're going to go back to, what did we say? The bludgeon weapon. So if you're not doing enough damage, make sure the proper weapon is selected, because by default, it goes to auto select. For lunging and strike, my personal preference, since we already talked about that, is I like to use my dual wield weapons for it. Why? Because they're faster. Faster hits means you generate more rage, and it is what it is. So that was talked about. A lot of people asked me about it, so we went over it. The bludgeon weapon, if your damage is lacking, make sure this is set to the proper weapon for your build. And what else do we have to talk about here today? The Paragon Tree. How important is the Paragon Tree for everybody? Very important. What's the first crazy node you can get? It is in the Weapon Master Paragon board up here, and it is called Hunter Killer. I had a few people DM me saying, Murder, awesome build, I'm pumping through content. The only issue is sometimes I get to elites and I'm just not killing them. And I'm saying, well, what level is your Paragon? Where are you? And they don't have the Hunter Killer node. This is something I personally enjoy to kind of rush to as quick as possible. You get your first glyph here, second glyph here, or you can, I don't know if you would actually skip this glyph, but you can, if you want to, you can rush straight to Hunter Killer. I mean, it's really good. Look at this, 32% damage to elites. There's just so much there. Movement speed after killing elites, and you get movement speed here, damage to elites, damage to elites, damage to elites. Tons of damage to elites here that you would not normally have. This is an invaluable node on the Paragon tree, and it's very important to get it early on, because at my level, you're not going to be struggling. I mean, look how many Paragon boards we have here. So when you're this far into the game, you're not going to struggle at all. However, early on, elites can do tons and tons of damage. So it's really important to get that Hunter Killer to make sure your damage is optimized for that early game. The next thing I'm going to talk about is going to be the weapon expertise. I've seen tons of questions about this. How does this work? So whatever technique you have selected here is going to be applied all of the time. Now, whatever weapon you're currently using with whatever skill you're using is also going to be applied. So if I'm using Mace for Whirlwind, my main damaging ability, I am getting the Mace expertise, Bludgeoning Arsenal, which means I'm getting Fury when hitting an enemy, double gained when it's Berserking. It's a lucky hit chance. What's my lucky hit chance on Whirlwind? Very high. And then next we have 15 multiplicative crit damage to stunned and vulnerable targets. Taking Ground Stomp, I stack vulnerability damage, so I have tons and tons of that. If I took this and I swapped this to Mace expertise, I would be losing an entire expertise level, because nothing else here applies. If I'm using a Mace and have Mace selected as always applicable, I'm missing a complete node here, which is why I have Axe here, because Axe is incredibly strong, increased crit strike chance against vulnerable targets, and 15 multiplicative damage to vulnerable enemies. So we have that. If you have a sword and you're using a sword for whatever build you have, what are you going to do? You're going to pick either Axe, Mace, whatever looks good for your build. Definitely not Polearm. The fact that I have 3 out of 10 Polearm is sus. What was I doing with the Polearm? Seriously, that was a question for you guys. What the hell was I doing with the Polearm? This should be 0 out of 10, but it's not, so it is what it is. Okay, so now that we covered that, those are the major things on how to become the perfect barbarian player, how to scale yourself to the moon. And the last thing I want to talk about, which is going to be a huge point for many players, and I'm going to make sure at the start of the video, there's some link to make sure you get to this part if you're an early player, early game player, early level player in the video, since this was kind of a long-winded video, how to manage your Fury early on. So important roles, you need cooldown on your helmet, you need cooldown on your neck, you need, this is ancestral gear, so level 60 plus, usually, world tier 4, but we'll just call it level 60 plus, because that's what you have to be to use the gear. You want resource generation, And then on the boots, again, Fury cost reduction. These things are important. This is where you want them, on those slots there. So now that we went over that, what do you do if you're not 60? Are you just screwed? Everyone knows that Barbarian leveling is the worst in the entire game, but there are some ways you can get around it, and that's what I want to talk about here today. So cooldown is going to be the obvious thing you're going to go for. The second not so obvious thing is going to be the skill tree. I briefly mentioned this in the other video, but I want to talk about it now. Do not take Unbridled Rage if you are having a miserable time with Fury management. Just don't do it. It's about murder. 135 multiplicative damage increase for my core skills, which is the main skill in pretty much every Barbarian build. How can I afford to lose that much damage? Because we're Barbarians. We have 4 freaking weapons and we only use 1. Need I say more? Drop this. Your damage is going to go down for sure. You're still going to complete content. If you need a bleed, take Gushing Wounds if you synergize well with bleeds. If you don't want to bleed, I would take Unconstrained. It can be very good. Don't know anything about Walking Arsenal. I haven't played any Walking Arsenal type builds here, so I cannot give any advice on this. But essentially, from what I can read, it has to do with a build that is using every single type of weapon, cycling through different abilities, which is probably the most common in early game, because end game, you don't have a lot of play since you need 3 buffs and your ultimate ability. That leaves you with 2 slots. And if you need 3 weapon damage bonuses, you see what I'm saying here? Okay, anyways. So I don't know enough about this. It doesn't look that good, but maybe it is good. I don't know. Can't say for sure. So my personal recommendation, Gushing Wounds. The overpowering part's not that important. It's really just when causing an enemy to bleed, you have a chance equal to your crit strike chance to increase the bleed amount by 100% of your crit damage. Good. Unconstrained, we can read that, increase Berserker's duration by 5 seconds and increases his damage bonus by 25% here. Very nice here. You're not going to take Wrath of the Berserker early game. You want Call of the Ancients. Very strong cooldown, pumps the damage for sure, so these things can help you. Outside of that, one of the strongest skills that I would definitely recommend people consider when using, regardless if their build, is Death Blow. So Death Blow, if it kills an enemy, it resets the cooldown. And it hits pretty damn hard. Not gonna lie, it hits pretty damn hard. I leveled with this a lot and it helped me so much. I mean, I played Hammer of the Ancients, also known as Hoda. If you ever heard Hoda, that's what they're talking about. Hammer of the Ancients, and I'll just show you what the ability is. Hammer of the Ancients, right here. You slam the ground really hard and do a ton of damage. But I also had Death Blow and Lunging Strike. Now, it ended up being a Death Blow build. Yes, Hammer hits hard, but it costs so much Fury. How much Fury does this cost? Anybody? 0. And if you kill an enemy, it resets the cooldown. And what did we just say? It hits really hard. So, if you play your build correctly, you get enemies low, you Death Blow, they die. Why is this really good for resetting the cooldown? Scroll down here, increased 100 multiplicative increased damage to bosses, which is nice. You won't get the reset, but it pumps. You're not going to take this one. If Death Blow damages at least one enemy, gain 20 Fury. That's a major Fury gain if you're resetting the cooldown over and over again. So really helpful in the early game. The next thing you take is, while berserking, Fury generations increased by 6%. Very good. And then finally, for taking something like Ground Stomp, it also generates Fury. And what synergizes well with the berserking talent we just talked about, Lunging Strike, gets 1.5 seconds of berserking. And if you're berserking more often, you're generating Fury more often, so there's really good synergy there. Now, with everything I just talked about, you should never struggle with Fury. I didn't struggle with Fury when I was leveling up. And now I'm passing along that knowledge to you if you didn't know it already, and now you have that knowledge. Very, very easy ways to have Fury generated. If you know of even better ways to generate Fury that I don't know everything. Straight, nobody knows everything. Straightforward, I mean, that's common sense here. If you know something that I didn't say, that could be a help to people struggling with Fury like many are, comment. Put a comment, let the people know. They want to know. I'm curious. I love Barbarian. I'm curious about anything for Barbarian. I'm here to learn something new every single day. I already learned 2 new things today, and I plan to learn 5 more. We keep up this pattern together on this YouTube channel. We're going to be Barbarian pros in no time, especially for the season 1 launch. So that's going to conclude this video, going over everything I wanted to about how to be a pro. And the final tip for beginners is going to be, if you're struggling with the boss, do not be afraid to respec your skills. I made this mistake when I was coming up. There was a boss, I think it was the tier 4 or 3 capstone. I was getting dominated. What did I do? I got rid of one of my damaging abilities, took Iron Skin, put bonus points in the heal. Where is it? Yeah, heal. And yeah, I did that. And then I killed the boss. Do not be afraid, if you start struggling in content, to swap your talents mid-fight, mid-whatever, to make it so you have a greater chance of success. There are so many different things on this talent tree for barbarians that are not good for practical uses, but for very niche uses, which you will find all the time while leveling up, are incredible. So just read. There's nothing wrong with reading and just knowing more about the tree. There's more health here. I know I've taken that before. DR against elites. I know I've taken that in certain scenarios before. Increased move speed if I have to just run by mobs. Perfect. So that is my final tip. That's going to conclude this video. Listen, together we are going to grow on this channel. I'm learning every day, like I said, you're learning every day, and we are going to crush season 1 together. So, as always, guys, if you enjoyed my content, smash the like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and listen, keep smashing, stay strong, and I will see you in the next upload.